My friends, good day. Very often you see this debate, funded pension versus pay-as-you-go pension. And of course, each side has plenty of arguments to defend its position. Today, why am I here? I'm here to put these two sides back to back and tell you why this question is fundamentally a scam. So I'll take this. This sheet you see here represents the value that a worker will create. So a worker will create this value. It doesn't matter. You can say it's a monthly value, an annual value, or even over a lifetime of work. It doesn't matter. This is the value created. All right? What happens is the company he works for will already take the biggest part of the value even before paying him. Why? If you work somewhere, if you're paid 2,000 euros a month, it's because you probably produced much more. All right? They're not going to give you everything you produced. They're going to take the biggest part of your work and give you just this part. All right? That's what they're going to give you. This they'll keep. This will go to your company. Of course, if the operating conditions get tougher at some point, for example, if we have crises, if we have mass immigration or things like that, what we'll do is, quite simply, we'll put pressure on wages and we'll lower the part that you receive. We've also had, since about what? Since the 90s, early 2000s, productivity has been rising, for example, because of the arrival of computers. Productivity goes up, but wages don't keep up. Quite simply, the surplus productivity is increasingly taken by the forces of money. So what's happening is that the part you produce is getting bigger and the part you receive is getting smaller and smaller. You got that, right? Actually, you haven't gotten anything yet. We need to talk. At that point, that's the part of value you have left. What the state is going to do, it's going to go into the boss's office and say, well, we want our share, we want the contributions, all that, we want the contributions. We have to take our share too, along with you. So the state comes and takes, instead of taking the company's profits, it takes money that would have gone to you. The salary that's left, we call it the gross salary. So you realize it's already been cut twice. That's the gross salary. So from there, when you get it, the state will say, you know what? You have to pay taxes. Okay, well, there you go. You're going to pay taxes. So you'll be left with this, okay? Then once you spend the money, they'll say, wait, he hasn't been taxed enough. We haven't taken enough. So you're going to pay 20% value added tax, all right? A 100 euro bill, you only get 80 euros because they're going to take 20% value added tax. If you want to buy gas or something else or energy, it's going to, that 100 euro bill is worth even less. Anyway, the value of the bill is even lower because there are more and more taxes that you pay with it. Okay, so far? So that's what you have left. Then, for example, if you want to buy, let's say you want to buy a place to live, you want to buy an apartment or a house. Well, what's going to happen is you'll have to pay a stamp duty or a transfer fee or whatever it's called, depending on the jurisdiction. Because the state considers that up until now you haven't paid enough taxes, right? They're going to take some more, aren't they? Then what's going to happen is you'll start paying your bank loan. And what's going to happen is that most of the money you pay will go toward fees in interest, right? It will go to interest, to bank fees. So again, once more, the powers of money come and take. All right? So that's it. What's left is the house. So when you die and your descendants come to handle your estate, they have to count everything. They have to count your watch. They have to count your car, the cash in your account, if there is any, the value of the house, all of that. And then they have to give 40% to the state because the state hasn't taken enough, right? You realize that the state, well, it considers this situation unfair. You see, it hasn't taken enough from all that. So the state is going to take, and that's what's going to be left. That's what's going to be left, you know, for your descendants. They're going to be left with your losses, right? They're going to be left with your losses, funerals to pay for with a credit card, and then they're going to be left with crumbs. So that they, let me show you, I took another piece of paper. They'll have to start from scratch. You see, they'll have to start from scratch. So you see why the social elevator doesn't exist. Because quite simply, what we do is reset everything with each generation. You're not going to build a dynasty because with each generation, we only leave crumbs. Okay? Well, now, the story of retirement. The problem with that is that we're changing the narrative. We're changing the rules of the game in the middle of the match. Where? Well, how come? It suits them. They'll position themselves. Let me give you an example. You know the story about socializing losses but privatizing gains, right? You see? When it comes to profits, it's private, but when it comes to losses, they're shared. In 2008, we saved the banks by using taxpayers' money to bail them out, telling them they took risks and lost money. Well, here's some money. So, in fact, we gave them money. And later on, I'd like to tell you that the banks, because at first we said yes, because these banks, you see, they have to lend money to shops, to businesses, otherwise everyone goes bankrupt. And then, well, it's in nobody's interest, there will be unemployment and everything. Oh well, the banks took the money and didn't want to lend it to small shops, to small and medium businesses and all that, and many of them went under in large numbers. What these banks did is they lent the state its own money. They made money off of it. Okay, you see? It's not a fair game, you know. It's not an equal game at all. So our story about changing the narrative, here's where it stands. When it comes to paying taxes, they take almost all of the fruits of people's labor under the pretext that, well, yes, we live in a society. We have to pay for roads. We have to pay for hospitals, for schools, and so on. So yes, of course, well, we have to take, that's it. So we take. We leave nothing for the person. We're going to squeeze them dry throughout their whole life, okay? Now the person is old, tired, sick, and now they can't produce anymore. They can't produce anymore. That's it. They're exhausted. We've worn them out. What are we going to do? We're going to tell them, but for retirement, you can't rely on the collective. We're not collectivists. Retirement is private, so you have to handle it yourself. You save and invest your own money. You need to set money aside, understand? So now they're giving you lessons in economic realism, okay? So you still need to know. You have to be consistent the whole way through. Right? You have to be consistent throughout the story. Either you say, we're collectivists, and in that case, well, when the person is exhausted, tired, well, we'll collectively manage, right? We'll collectively manage to pay for his retirement, whatever it takes, as Macron said. We always find money for wars, climate, wind turbines, and lobbies. X, Y, we find it, right? Well, we can find it for pensions too, huh? Right? And the thing is, if we stopped wasting money, we would actually find enough for pensions. Or we just say, well, everyone has to manage on their own, okay? We live in a country as a service. By the way, that's where things are heading. You pay for what you need. You pay for schools, you pay for the hospital, you pay for everything. You keep 100% of your money, okay? You keep your money, we have zero taxes, okay? We have a minimalist state. The state would just be a small building, an administration with 3 guys inside. That's it. Great. And then you invest for your retirement. You handle it yourself. At the end of your retirement, you manage. Okay? Okay. That works too. But what's not possible is having both. Let me tell you the story of the double penalty. When you go for a funded pension system, oh, it's great. Look, in the United Kingdom, there is a funded pension system. In that country, there are retirees living like in the age of Dickens, in the age of Charles Dickens. We're really literally in the 1800s. People who have to choose between eating or keeping warm. Thousands die each year from the cold, especially retirees. Some spend days on heated buses because their homes aren't warm. Every year, thousands die from the cold. Capitalized pension plans, we have retirement fund managers who make crazy amounts of money. They have 6-figure salaries, okay? Rock and roll stars, okay. Here's the other problem. The problem is this. When you turn your pension into a capitalized pension plan, you financialize your retirement. We're already in a world where we've sold schools, dental and doctor's offices, everything, including parking lots. There are countries, take the United Kingdom, for example. You stop your car engine and you're paying parking fees to an investment fund that's based in Australia. You end up with a population that doesn't live in its own country. Your country, it's already been sold. Everything has been sold. There's nothing left. There's not a single service, building or road that hasn't been sold and that isn't generating income for people who aren't even here. They're not working for you. Electricity and water prices are skyrocketing. Everything is. But sure, privatization is great. Privatization is great. The first 3 days are at the beginning. You'll notice when we switch to extraction mode. When we've eliminated choice, competition, and public services, making everything private, you'll see what happens when your water is sold to an investment fund. All right? You'll think twice before you flush the toilet. You'll think twice before you take a shower. Like many countries are sinking into this situation again. So let me tell you a story. When you pay the powers of money to turn your retirement into a financial product once again, your retirement now becomes a financial product. What will the powers of money do? They'll put pressure on companies and say, we want dividends. Figure it out. We want dividends. We're investors, damn it. We're in a republic, aren't we? We invested in you. So what do you have to do? You have to extract more value. That means you have to push wages down. You have to get rid of as many people as possible. That means working with smaller teams. Crush those who are left, make them work unpaid overtime. You see, extraction, more violence. All right? So you're paying for your retirement, and in the end, you might actually be paying the people who will launch the redundancy plan that will kick you out. You see? That's what you're doing. Secondly, once you reach retirement age, well, your retirement will depend on the markets. Maybe if you're lucky, everything will be fine in the markets. Well, then you'll have a decent retirement. And if things go badly, well, it's like 2008. Well, that's how it is. And as you know, we regularly go through bubbles, market crashes and all that. Maybe they'll tell you, well, there's not much left, so deal with it. What do you want me to say? Look at the Versorgungswerk der Zahnärztekammer Berlin in Germany. In Germany, there's a pension fund that manages the retirement for, dentists, the dentist's retirement. Versorgungswerk der Zahnärztekammer Berlin. A few years ago, it managed about 2.2 billion euros. Now it's January 2010. Do you know how much it has under management? It has 1.1 billion. Half the money is missing and they don't know where it went. In Germany, they made ideological investments. As you know, they lent money. As they say, who lends? They lent to startups that were broke. As they say, lending to the poor is lending for laughs. So they lent money to companies that don't exist anymore, so they'll never get it back. They invested in a shrimp factory. You see what I mean? The money is gone. Okay? So now what we have is tens of thousands of dentists in Germany who won't be able to retire. They'll need to work slower and for a longer time, right? Some people must advance in their careers even if they wish to stop. They can't, as they have to keep working and paying. All right? And so the young people coming into the profession will have fewer opportunities, since some elderly people keep working because they have no other option. You see what I mean? So they filed a complaint. There was a complaint. We filed a complaint against a bank, against some managers, against some people. Yeah, well, that's how it is. We'll even find someone to send to prison, don't worry, all right? No problem really for that. To sum up, this video is about what we're doing. Imagine you take someone, put them in prison, and then you don't feed them, and then you say, well, figure it out. You just have to earn your own living, right? Do like everyone else. Go on, work, for God's sake. Go on, work. He's locked up between four walls. How do you expect him to work? How do you expect him to go out and work? He's locked up. If he's locked up, he's your responsibility. His food is your responsibility. Well, it's the same thing. We're putting financial bars around people. We're making them poorer. Millions of people work, build the world around us, and in the end, when they're no longer useful to the system, well, that's it. Deal with it. It's your fault, right? If you had invested. Invest in what? Invest in what? People are overdrawn by the 10th of the month, sometimes even earlier. Everything's been taken from them, and I mean people who work, not those just watching television. People who work, people who fill up the Rezo Express Regional A in the morning, right? People who crowd the subways, who are stuck in traffic jams on the ring road, and others who work, risking their health and lives, all right? Everything is taken from them by force. And then they're told, yeah, well, you should have, you should have saved up. Huh? Do you realize how narcissistic and twisted an answer like that is? If you blame the victim, you see what I mean? They take everything from you, right? Even your dignity, they take it from you. And then, well, you should have built yourself up, right? If you had put some money aside, I don't know, me on NVIDIA. You see, today, it's really disgusting, okay? Honestly, it's unspeakably disgusting, okay? It's, yeah, funded pension plans, whatever. Honestly, the next person who talks to me about funded pensions or whatever, I don't know what I'm going to say. All right, I've already said enough. That's it. I've said it. Thank you, my friends, for listening to this video up to this point. See you very soon. We'll see each other in a Next video.